Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Innovation Days. I hope you're all comfortable and I hope you're ready for the ride. I just want to let you know that this event is called Disrupt and Rewire, and it's the brainchild of the European Brain Council and BeLean. Why did they come up with this idea? Because they realized that there was a gap. There was a gap within the stakeholders in the brain innovation community, and they wanted to fill that gap to make sure that people could network, work together, share information, and grow the brain innovation sector. More about this in a moment. I want to obviously inform you that this event is part of a journey that continues until 2021, so it's just the beginning. I also want to let you know that this event was supposed to happen physically in Brussels, but due to the global pandemic, we had to hold it virtually and create a Brain Innovation Days studio where I'm at. So just a few facts. Over 480 people registered for this event, representing 62 countries and 4 continents. This is rather remarkable for a first event. I also want to say that we're going to be interacting with you at home or in the office, so make sure that you're part of the virtual conversation, which is through the official hashtag BIDDays. Share your information, share your questions, poke people, like posts, ask more questions on Twitter and in LinkedIn. I'm also going to ask you to have your phones nearby. Why? Because we're going to ask you some questions on Slido. The official Slido number is 6745. And on this note, I'm going to ask you at home and in the office to answer a first question. Who do you represent in this big and diverse community of brain innovation? You have 30 seconds. And the numbers are in terms of who you're representing. We have 38% of you that are in the research academic bracket, 20% identify in the scientific research educational bracket, 14% of you are healthcare professionals, 12% of you are from the non-governmental organization, 10% from the startup innovator sector, 10% the general public, and 6% of you are policymakers and public servants. So a wide spectrum of people, which is exactly why we're here today. And on this note, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Professor Monica Di Luca, the President of the European Brain Council. Monica, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much. And let me say immediately that it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this first virtual Brain Innovation Day as European Brain Council President. So many of you are here, and since you are all here, you probably know already what the European Brain Council is, but let me spend a few words on our mission. The European Brain Council is an umbrella organization who merge at the same table all major stakeholders in Europe with interest in the brain, research at all levels, going from scientific society to clinician, representative of member state and private sector, and more importantly, patients' organization. Our main mission is to promote and advocate for brain research with the ultimate goal of improving the life of our citizens that are estimated in Europe amounting at 179 million living with a brain condition. With the aim to speak with one voice, the European Brain Council stands as the platform to foster cooperation between its member organization and other stakeholders, consistently and constantly promoting dialogue between scientists, industry, and society. Since the foundation of our organization, I have to say that we have been strongly convinced that discoveries and advances in fundamental neuroscience are the prerequisite for describing not only the normal brain functioning, but also to improve our understanding of the etiology and pathophysiology of brain disorders, neurological and mental alike. And it is crucial, in our opinion, that Europe set ambitious targets aimed at accelerating brain research and reducing the societal impact of brain disorders. Now it's time to act. The current COVID-19 pandemic put us in front of many challenges, but at least we learned a very important lesson. Research is important for the health of the society and its attention and continuous support. But if this is true for COVID-19, we have to be vocal in saying, as I alluded to you before, that 1 out of 3 Europeans are set to live with a brain condition at some point of their life. And in addition, most of the disorders of the brain still remain without a disease-modifying treatment or cure. And research for brain diseases needs continuous support. We also know that developing treatments for the brain diseases is extremely challenging. We know that the timelines for developing medicine and devices required to treat the central nervous system can take up to almost 18 years compared to the average of 12 years for other drug pipelines. And furthermore, new drugs face low approval rates. We need to change pace. We need innovation in this domain, being conscious that in brain science, innovation has to be considered as broad and inclusive concept. It goes from novel approaches and ideas from brain researchers to translational research to novel policy recommendation. To change pace, we need to be open to innovation in all aspects and with a multi-stakeholder approach. And this is exactly what the European Brain Council proposed and would like to achieve in this new format event. Open the dialogue with all main players of innovation in brain research. And I hope that you will have a great virtual Brain Innovation Day and you will enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this opening statement. Really interesting. A few facts that I pulled out. I heard one voice, one platform coming together, really moving the barrier. I also, a very significant number that I heard is 170 million people suffer from something linked to the brain, and this is maybe an underestimate. So the scene has been set. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is about bringing stakeholders together from the different universes of brain innovation. And so on this note, I think it would be very important to understand the policy behind the brain innovation sector at the national, regional, and obviously at the European level. So our next speaker is Director General for Research and Innovation from the European Commission, Jean-Éric Paquet. Jean-Éric, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor De Luca. Thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words at the opening. You all know that I love research and innovation days, so I'm delighted to be attending these Brain Innovation Days today and kick off the discussions with colleagues coming in during the day. And I'm delighted that Karim Berkouk will also be available now at the opening to give you a sense of what is happening. I would like, of course, to say that we very much share Professor your analysis that we need to continue to invest also at EU level into brain research. I mean, we are doing it on a rather massive scale today. I mean, if you collect all the activities ongoing across EU programs, I mean, the ballpark figure is 600 million euros a year invested under EU programs into brain research. And that, of course, is just a fraction of the needed investment largely done also at national level. And I think it is indeed very good that in this panel, we also have the views of professors, clinicians across national systems, which need to come together much more. Professor De Luca, you very much insisted on the need to connect and on the need for synergies, and I would like to echo that. I think whilst certainly Horizon Europe will be in a position, including with the successor of the IMI, including in the European Innovation Council, to continue to invest resources and make our instruments available for brain research, what we need to do is to move beyond these specific activities, connect them better. And I think the idea of a European brain research area, which I think will be discussed during your day, I find very attractive. The European research area, which the Commission is now relaunching together with member states, the German presidency, the Portuguese and Slovenian presidencies during this year and a half, see the European research area as needing to connect better what is happening in national research and innovation system with what is happening at EU level. We have had, of course, very obvious successes in the past already, but I think what we have seen in COVID-19 and the appetite there was for actors to really come together, supported with EU funding or not, demonstrates that there is, I think, need and momentum and readiness across systems to really align much more than has been the case in the past and look at thematic European research area developments. And I think the brain research would, from that point of view, be a particularly relevant one. So you can certainly count on the teams in the Commission to also support efforts of actors with the European Brain Research Council to generate that European brain research area with you. Now, we are in the last few weeks until we will have Horizon Europe in place. Of course, we still need an agreement on the future European budget and then on the Horizon Europe budget. It's going to be not entirely as ambitious as the Commission had hoped, but still a very meaningful program. And as you probably know, also in health-related research, we very much believe that it has an obvious recovery and resilience dimension. And therefore, this cluster of Horizon Europe would be upgraded with resources from Next Generation EU to ensure that we have really the capacity to help health systems, research related to health systems, and brain and mental related research is key there to be properly funded in the next few years. So we now need to get these priorities right. And I'm sure that many, if not all of you, were active in the Research and Innovation Days a few days ago. And we will now ensure that this feeds into the finalization of strategic planning on the one hand, but work programs maybe more practically on the other hand. There will be a lot of work still happening around the work programs, and I would invite all of you to continue to interact with the teams here in the DG, with Karim particularly, but others too, to ensure that we get the setup right. Choices will need to be made, and not everything will be there, but I think we need you to ensure that indeed we prioritize properly, or generally, but also over time. And let me finish here with the idea of a European partnership on brain health. I mean, I noted the political obvious momentum behind the idea in the European brain research area. But as one instrument with also EU funding attached is indeed the perspective of a partnership around brain research. This is a future partnership which has traction in several member states, so I very much welcome that. And whilst it's not part of the 49 initial partnerships of Horizon Europe, because we are not entirely ready yet, I think the perspective for the second phase of Horizon Europe for such a partnership is certainly available as we speak. And I would therefore also very much encourage today, but also as we move in implementing the outcome of today's work, that you keep that as a perspective. There would be obvious interest on our side to interact with all actors, including member states, for a future brain-related research partnership. Voilà, I leave you in the capable hands of Karim, but also Pierre for IMI and many other colleagues during the day. So Professor De Luca, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to say a few words at the outset, and I wish you a very fruitful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Éric, for setting the scene in terms of EU policy towards brain innovation. Just a few words that I heard. I heard connections, synergies, support, working at the national level, but also at the EU level. And I certainly heard that there's going to be continued investment at a massive scale. So very positive news, I think, for the brain innovation community. Now, on this note, like I said, today was co-designed by the European Brain Council and BeLean. So what is brain innovations? Well, to explain to us in a few words and in a conversation, I'm going to invite Frédéric de Strebec, the Executive Director of the European Brain Council, and Guillaume de Viron, the CEO of BeLean. Guillaume and Fred, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Guillaume.
Good afternoon.
So it's a pleasure to be here. It's all very exciting to be here for the virtual launch of the Brain Innovation Days. But before we start and we actually explain to the audience what the Brain Innovation Days are, can you tell us a little bit more of what BeLean is?
Yeah, so BeLean is a startup accelerator mainly dedicated to biotech and medtech companies. So we are a team of 10 people with expertise in finance, marketing, and science also. And during the last 5 years, we have worked with 552 projects, and it was clear that a successful project was based on is based on 4 pillars. Excuse me. So product is one of the one, team, complementary team, and visibility. That's it. Funding, money for sure, and the last one, network. When I mean network, I mean visibility and the possibility to accelerate all the BD activities, the commercial activities, and to facilitate also the exit aspects. For those reasons, we have decided to launch the Brain Innovation Day initiative, and mainly on 2 pillars. So the first one is funding. The goal is really to create close relationship with startup and dedicated funds, so funds which are looking for such type of project. And the second pillar we are working on is a network, so create connection between projects, big pharma, universities, patient associations, and local ecosystem also.
All right, but we heard earlier from our president, Professor Monica Di Luca, well, not only that the current context of COVID pandemic was really boosting the need for health research and health innovation. That's particularly important in the brain field because we realized that the burden experienced by people living with a brain condition was actually worsening. But that's also the reason why our community, so patient organization, researchers, clinicians, and the industry is convening together in order to engage with policymakers. And to us, as we heard from Jean-Éric Paquet, the Brain Innovation Days actually make sense. It's the right momentum, but it's only a start. We have a bigger journey.
So clear. So today it's just not just a one-off meeting event. The goal is really to mobilize all the community and to create a great group of people working together. We will launch a platform that will enable interaction between all the different parties, which are entrepreneurs, startup, big pharma, and patient associations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Guillaume, and I'm pleased to hand over to Jessica for the continuation of this journey.
Interesting start to understand what Brain Innovation Days is all about. I heard journey, I heard visibility, working together, accelerating. So I think very key words for everyone here in the studio, but also for you at home. And talking about you at home or in the office, here is our next Slido question for you. If you could use one word to say what is brain innovation, what word would it be? You have 30 seconds to answer. Thank you for answering. We've got quite a variety of words, but the main words that come up are future, technology, research, collaboration, discovery, healing, creativity. So I guess it means a lot for a lot of people, but the collaboration, future and research do come up. So take note and think about this. As I've mentioned since the beginning, we're really trying to bring the community together. And we've actually done some work before today. We went out and asked people, mainly stakeholders from the European Brain Council, to give us their views on the current situation and how they envision the future. So sit back, relax, enjoy your coffee or your tea or your water, and let's hear from this community.
The efforts that the brain innovation community is undertaking really goes to the heart of everything we stand for here in the city of Leuven in Belgium. In fact, our mission is to innovate for all and with all. That means that we bring together bright people, entrepreneurs, researchers, scientists, citizens, and we bridge the gaps between them, and we make sure that they really collaborate in a systemic way, in a very strong way, and that they find solutions for the challenges of our time. Challenges about climate change, poverty, diseases, exclusion. We need new insights that make sure that we again can find progress and that we take as much people as we can with us on that journey. I believe that you guys are doing exactly that. I'm very convinced of it, I'm proud of it, and I wish you all the luck and always welcome in Leuven.
Human brain is, for its size, the most complex object that we know. It is the organ necessary for our consciousness, our thoughts, our dreams, our imagination, our memory, our will, everything. And it's, so because of this complexity, there is still a lot to be done to understand how it is organized and how it works. Yet, fantastic progress has been accomplished over the last decades, and we know that understanding the brain is within reach.
Europe, and indeed the world, has and will have a huge burden of brain and nervous system disease. For many conditions, we have little understanding of their causes, mechanisms, or their effective treatment, or even better prevention. Innovations in these are therefore increasingly important imperatives.
Speaking about neurological patients, and I am one of them, I've seen in my many years of neurological patient advocacy how enormous the burden is, how extremely limited the possibility for cure, if at all, and how little effective treatment for most of these devastating disorders.
Innovation denotes new, better, more effective ways of solving problems. According to the World Health Organization, health innovation improved the efficiency, effectiveness, quality, sustainability, safety, and/or affordability of healthcare.
Many neurological disorders, such as Parkinson's or MS, were discovered in the 1800s or early 1900s. And yet, hundreds of years later, we still don't have a cure or effective treatment for some. It doesn't take a genius to conclude that innovation is more than needed.
Implementing innovative practices in the field of mental health is a key priority. We want to tackle the societal challenges and to foster the development of efficient health systems, especially at the time of COVID-19 pandemic.
Europe must be a world leader in brain innovation, not only for the sake of the many patients with brain disorders, but also to boost innovative strategies and create business and job opportunities for Europeans.
These innovation days will be the opportunity for conversation and interactions between scientists and between scientists and other members of the society, which do not take place usually.
I believe that one of the things that brain innovation should facilitate is the translation of all the basic the knowledge that we have accumulated from basic neuroscience into novel interventions, novel cures. I think that this process can only derive from cross-fertilization, a crosstalk between the preclinical and clinical neuroscience.
Basic neurosciences and clinical neurosciences and neurosurgery go hand in hand, we will improve the quality of life of many, many patients.
Very often the progress is made at unexpected places at the interface between various disciplines. For example, neuroscience and biotechnologies, or neuroscience and artificial intelligence.
Through the progress of biology, basic sciences, engineering, and information technology, we might achieve the goal to understand better how the brain works, but also how disease is being generated. And this will allow us, the surgeons, to act in a more targeted way.
The Brain Innovation Days represent a unique platform for exchange, networking, and community building. And Ian is very happy to join this important activity.
ECNP supports the Brain Innovation Days.
We are proud to support the Brain Innovation Days.
Europe, Middle East and Africa chapter supports the Brain Innovation Days.
These Brain Innovation Days will be really important and interesting and exciting, and we are looking forward to them.
EFNA supports brain innovation.
We support Brain Innovation Days to improve collaborations across Europe between workers, between specialties, and between nations.
We want really to bring science one step further in the future.
We can make things happen.
It's actually one of the major challenges for the 21st century.
Initiatives like these are going to change the perception, mostly at the level of policymakers.
Here we are, promoting the future.
Understanding the human brain will take time, determination, and collaboration. By pulling together and coordinating our efforts, we can create a world where brain disorders are just a distant memory.
Hello again to the studio, everyone. I'm back. I hope you enjoyed these interventions. It seems for me that the message is clear that Europe needs to lead when it comes to brain innovation and that there is no single cure, so there's still a lot of work to be done. Talking about work, I'd like to present the scientific aspect of this community. Our next speaker, Professor Dr. Petra Ritter, all the way from the Berlin Institute of Health, is going to discuss her mapping of the brain. I also want you to get involved in this intervention. Make sure you get onto Slido and prepare some questions that I'm eventually going to share with Professor Ritter. On this note, Petra, the floor is yours.
Welcome again. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this very nice event today. And it's my particular pleasure to introduce today brain simulation and how brain simulation can open the door for new technologies in the health sector. And I will be focusing in my presentation on the virtual brain simulation platform today. This is a platform that has been pulled together by an international team. I'm one of the co-leaders. And there we take real brain images, brain scans from real persons, healthy persons or patients, to build copies of their brains on the computer. And these are not just static anatomical models where you can zoom in and out like in Google Maps, but you can really run simulations like in a flight simulator, taking off and landing. And I want to show you this. This is the software. It's open source. You can go to thevirtualbrain.org and download it and run your own simulation. So there are many analysis tools available, mathematical tools. And here you see a running simulation. You can simulate the activity of a brain as you could also measure it. This is neuronal activity, local field potentials, firing rates, but also functional magnetic resonance imaging, electroencephalography, magnetoencephalography. And of course, this gives you the opportunity to study the healthy brain, but also to observe what goes wrong in the diseased brain. And the big advantage is that you can test with a simulation tool treatment, surgery, drug, virtual drug treatment. And you have many options because you are not need to care or worry about adverse effects, since you are treating a virtual brain and not a real patient brain. So this work is highly interdisciplinary. It's a collaboration between mathematicians, physicists, medical experts, software engineers. And I show you here how we can infer using mathematical tools real mechanism of brain functions. I just want to give you a glimpse here. So what you see here is a state space spanned by the activity of two cell populations in the brain, the pyramidal cells, which are excitatory and inhibitory interneurons. And what you see here is that their activity depends on the whole brain network input. So on the x-axis, you see the whole brain activity, and depending on the whole brain network activity in which these populations of neurons are embedded, you see different geometric objects, the blue large circle or the blue cone. These are so-called limit cycles, and this is oscillatory activity that is generated by these membranes of the cells, and that can be simulated. Or if you go more to the left, you see a black line, and this is just a fixed point when no oscillatory activity would happen. And all the errors are all the possibilities that the system has. So there are many possibilities, and you see critical points. So depending on where you sit in the system, just a very small change can make a big change in the brain state. And this can be adaptation if there's an environment change, but this can also lead to failure, to brain disease. So what are now the advantages of these brain simulations? There are many. Obviously, there are benefits for patients if you can plan surgery on the computer, for example, for surgery in patients with epilepsy, or if you can identify mechanistic target points for neurodegenerative diseases in your computer model. But there are also very important other aspects. So what you see here is a public outreach tool, which you can find via this URL. But this is also part of the HBP, the Human Brain Project Traveling exhibition. We have developed this based on the virtual brain software, and we provide here information about functional networks in the brain in many different languages. So you can see there at the bottom, you can choose between Arabic, English, German, Hebrew, Polish, and we are increasing the number of languages that are integrated. So this is a very collaborative international work. And another advantage is, of course, if we study the complexity of the brain and we understand complex interactions, this can be also transferred to other societal challenges, like, for example, pandemics, like the COVID pandemics happening now, or, for example, the climate change. So now coming back to our two populations, excitatory pyramidal cells and inhibitory cells. So the story gets even more complex if you have changes due to disease. So you see the parameter there, J, at the top of the panel, the control parameter, and this indicates the degree, the amount of pathological protein that is accumulated in brain regions, the beta amyloid that you find in Alzheimer's disease and neurodegeneration. And we know that in the vicinity of these plaques, the function of the inhibitory interneurons is impaired and the coupling to the pyramidal cells. And exactly this is mimicked here in the simulation. So by increasing the parameter J, the coupling between inhibitory cells and excitatory cells, which is happening when you have an increase of beta amyloid that you can measure with positron emission tomography, you see how the geometry of the dynamics, the dynamical repertoire of these neurons changes. So the cone is getting bigger, and that means the simulated oscillations are getting slower. The local field potentials and the EEG that we simulate here is getting slower. And this is exactly what you observe in patients with Alzheimer's disease. So we find ways to link signaling cascades, the accumulation of pathological protein, to the large-scale observation that we can measure in patients and get mechanistic models of brain disease. So these are obviously very complex interdependencies in the brain, and not only the brain is complex, but also our society is complex, and these strong interdependencies lead to uncertainties, and we need not only to take into account uncertainty in decisions that we make about the brain, but we also need to take it into account in decisions of our society. So we cannot simply ignore these interdependencies and complexities of life. The virtual brain is also part of the human brain project's e-infrastructure, eBrains. And if you are interested, you can go to the website ebrains.eu. This is a platform of the EU flagship human brain project. Here you find in the first page in the menu the virtual brain, and you find many pieces of information and buttons that bring you directly to the simulator in the cloud, for example, or workflows and pipelines that you can use in order to generate the data that you need to do such simulations. And I just want to give you an example. Be not frightened. I pick some examples out of this complex figure. These are the tools that we integrated in the past 2 years in eBrains, is the blue column related to the virtual brain. And this is actually the vision of platform development in the European Union, but also beyond, with partners in Canada and North America and Australia and other sites. So what we want to do is we want to make available our tools on platforms, community platforms, so that they are used by many users and further developed by many developers in the neuroscience community. And this enables to make them interoperable. So what do we see here? We see that our tools can be accessed on eBrains via the internet, via a web interface. Nevertheless, the computationally demanding computations are running in the back end of eBrains on high performance computers. This infrastructure is provided by eBrains and makes it really easy for users to run such complex simulations or process the data that are required to inform our models. What you also see is that the processing pipelines, for example, generate metadata. So the data that you generate on eBrains are already annotated. And this is very important information to feed those data derivatives to data repositories and to make them findable and reusable again, because only annotated data that also have metadata can be found in data warehouses and are useful to the community. So this is just a glimpse into the development work that we are doing with the virtual brain, and many other parallels related to other tools are ongoing in those large European projects. There's another large consortium in the European Commission, the Virtual Brain Cloud, that I am leading here at the Charité in Berlin. It consists of 17 European partners and 1 Canadian SME partner, Indoc Research. And we strive to integrate those health brain data into complex brain models with a focus on neurodegenerative disease to identify mechanisms underlying the development of neurodegenerative disease that then give us target points, for example, for pharmacological interventions. So this project is collaborating also with the Human Brain Project and with the European Open Science Cloud. And obviously, we are integrating personal data about brains in order to achieve generalizable results and also to identify individualized, personalized therapies. We need a lot of data. And this type of data is personal data. Brain data are personal data, brain data are health data, and therefore they fall under the protection of the general data protection regulations in the European Union. So this means that we need to have infrastructures for such sensitive data. And this is exactly what the Virtual Brain Cloud is focusing on, to build an infrastructure where such sensitive data can be processed according to the regulations of GDPR that foresee to protect the rights of the data subjects behind those data. So this requires a lot of technical modifications and implementations, but also organizational measures. And this is not just the technical platform that needs to get provided, but also the help desk that provides legal support for the data protection questions that arise and that can be very complex. So it's very important to us to be visible with the virtual brain cloud and engage with the community to build bridges to other platforms, not only to be interoperable, but also to leverage the development of the tools on the platform that should also be interoperable with other platforms. So we are talking to eBrains, for example, but also to Brain Commons, a platform that is built in the US. We are also talking to local developments. For example, here at the Charité in Berlin, we have the virtual research environment that builds a local platform for the secure processing of sensitive data. It's important to reach out to the community of developers in order to allow to extend the platform and to invite the developers of the neuroscience community to advance the functionality of the platform. Now I'm coming to the end, but before I end my presentation, I would like to point you to an event that is taking place virtually. It's an event that physically took place over the past years in Berlin. The name is Future Medicine. It's a conference, and it's a nice coincidence that the most popular word that has been chosen in the survey a few minutes ago was future. So here it is also about the future, and scientists and other stakeholders in the health care system are invited to submit their abstracts and to contribute to this format where we have 3 minutes presentations. So we have very short presentations that in this year will be focused on artificial intelligence and basic medical research, decision-making in medicine, and COVID-19 research. And the abstract submission deadline is still open until October 18th. I would be very happy to see many contributions from the entire European Union. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. I will be available for questions and for chats. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Petra. That was it was fascinating. There's clearly a lot of work being done and a lot to be done. What I did pull out of this was to reach out to the community, which is actually what we're doing right now today. So I think we're both on the same wavelength. So I'm going to ask you a first question before taking out some questions that the audience have shared with us. My question to you, Petra, is who will benefit the most from this virtual brain?
Yes, so in the long run, hopefully patients will benefit the most. In the shorter run, I think also the scientists will benefit, because what we are offering now is a great research platform. And this is not just the virtual brain, but also the developments related to eBrains and the virtual brain cloud that provide scientists with much more elaborate and powerful tools in order to do impactful science. In the long term, we want to help the patients, of course.
Thank you very much, Petra. Absolutely, we need to help the patients in the long term. So my next question is from the audience: what are the advantages of the virtual brain for patients and clinicians?
So what are the advantages for patients and clinicians? For patients, hopefully we see a very concrete advantage very soon. So we have one clinical trial running right now in France. The scientific lead is Victor Giersa, and what is done in this clinical trial is that 200 patients with epilepsy undergo the traditional way of neurosurgery, and 200 other patients also with epilepsy will undergo surgery with the help of the virtual brain. The clinical trial is now running for 1 year. Altogether, it will last 4 years. At the end, we will see whether, with the help of the virtual brain, the outcome for the patients is improved. And this is what we hope, and that will be the very concrete benefit for the patient and, of course, also for the physician.
Thank you very much, Petra. I've still got some questions for you. Will the virtual brain need a regular update?
Yes, so what we are presenting and developing are dynamic tools. They will never be finished. So this is ongoing research. They are developed in an agile manner. This means they are constantly usable, but they are also being constantly further developed and improved. And this is done with the input of the community.
Your answers were very enlightening, and thank you so much for sharing your work and how you see the future of brain innovation, simulation and mapping. So like I said, this is all about bringing the community together, listening to the different voices. And so the next segment of this event is actually a panel discussion, so that we not only hear from the different stakeholders, but they can hear themselves, ask each other questions, and also give each other answers. So on this note, I'd like to invite Frédéric for a panel discussion focusing on enabling brain innovation. Frédéric, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jess. So actually our objective of the day and of the journey is to create an enabling environment to foster investment and policy engagement in brain innovation, but also to propose concrete avenues and solutions to remove and address existing barriers. So our panelists today are going to deal with those questions, but before I turn to them, I would like to invite you once more to contribute questions and interact via Slido. You can see the reference 6745. So please contribute questions, and it will be my pleasure to turn them to the panelists. I would like to turn to our first guest of the day, so Dr. Karim Berkouk from the European Commission. Karim, I would like to invite you to introduce yourself briefly, but in doing so, we heard from Jean-Éric Paquet earlier what the Commission intends to do with the implementation of Horizon Europe. But can you explain a little bit more how very concretely brain research and brain innovation can and will be supported? Karim, over to you.
As Mr. Paquet said, the brain research is really on the radar of the Commission for many years, but even more in the future. But I will just mention a few issues around innovation itself. One of the key novelty in Horizon Europe is the creation of the EIC, the European Innovation Council. And we have seen in the past and also during the COVID-19 that many projects on innovation were funded through the EIC. I think it's about 150 million that went to companies, and many of them were about brain research actually, and simulation apps that were funded. But the EIC is more than just funding. It's trying to organize an ecosystem for startups, entrepreneurs, to really help them, because it's very difficult. The idea, many people have ideas, but how you transform that into a business is a bit more complex. And they will offer mentoring and also after access to venture capitalists. Jean-Éric Paquet also mentioned the recovery package. I think that there we will have also some possibilities in brain research, in particular in mental health and the health system. But we can see also innovation in a different way. It's not only about a new idea, it's maybe how an existing idea is now newly implemented in real life. And that's another type of innovation that we will certainly pursue through implementation research. And a big novelty also, it's the first time that we do that, is the creation of this European health data space. We're trying to get clinical data from all over Europe in probably it's a federated manner, but trying to connect all the electronic health data record. And on parallel of that, we are setting up an artificial intelligence framework, not only providing the data through the European health data space, but also providing the tools providing software for people to be able to extract the useful data. Then I will just mention another 2 points. Probably it's international cooperation, how we work with our international partners. And we have done that under the Global Alliance for Chronic Diseases, also on traumatic brain injury. And we're planning to do that a bit more. And we think that by partnering, innovation will also flourish a bit more. And I will mention that Horizon Europe, of course, is more impact-oriented. So it's more output, outcome-oriented. That should bring also a bit more innovation in place. And at least about the missions, we have set missions in Horizon Europe. One is on cancer, but I think it would benefit all areas. In particular, they are tackling the risk factors, and the risk factor like exercise, mental well-being, food will benefit everybody, and also the brain people. And beyond that, they are proposing some nice, maybe way of working together, like they are proposing the living labs as a new model of cooperation between industry, small companies, and academia. And with this, I think that's a small snapshot of what we are trying to do in brain innovation.
Thank you very much, Karim. This is very enlightening, but stay tuned. I'll turn to you in a moment with more questions. I would now like to welcome Florence Butlen from the European Medicines Agency. Florence, same thing, can I ask you to introduce yourself briefly, but also to explain to us what's the role of EMA, and how EMA can become an enabler of innovation, particularly in the brain space.
Yes, thank you very much. So thank you for the invitation. So yeah, I'm here on behalf of EMA. I work myself in the Human Evaluation Division. So it's one of the division within the agency responsible for the evaluation of new drugs. So being a psychiatrist myself with a background in neurosciences with a PhD as well, I'm more responsible for psychiatric drugs that are under review. So obviously we are also interested in what's coming before. And one of the strategic goals of the EMA is to foster the development of new drugs. So now in psychiatry and in neurosciences, as we know, there's been a lot of progress made so far in the understanding of the pathophysiology of the disorder, of the functioning of the brain, but as it has been said by previous speakers, so far it's not been translated into so much innovation. So we see yet too few drugs coming, and when it comes to new mechanism of action or innovative drugs, it's even fewer. So what can we do at EMA to help foster this? Well, we have a number of platforms that today, because today it's more about talking to one another and let's know the stakeholders what is at their disposal really. So it's we have scientific advice where basically we invite companies, developers, small and medium enterprise, academic, startups to come very early in their development, start discussing their development plan. And we can have that a few times, you know, before they feel ready to file for an approval. We have some other tools such as Prime. Prime is a specific setting where whereas when there is a disease with a high unmet medical need and there is some preliminary promising data, we can really help here by very close interaction and frequent interaction and try to build up the best design possible. So at the very end, the file is as robust as possible. So we also interact with IMI. We have a number of projects, not only in, not talking about CNS here, we have also at the moment with COVID. And it's this, all of this interaction are very important, and would like to stress really the need to have them early. I've heard as well from different speakers that obviously now we are in a digital environment, so that's something that for us it's quite important. We had last year a very interesting session with ECNP on the digital tools in CNS in particular, because we feel that it could be really helpful in that field because of the subjective aspects when it comes to measuring the outcome, the clinical scales, which could be optimized by digital tools. So we had then an interesting publication which has recently been out, if that can be of interest for some, where we try to summarize a guidance for developers when it comes to the digital health technology in CNS in particular. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I can say. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Florence. And same thing, I'll be back to you in a moment. But let me first introduce our last panelist. So this is Dr. Pierre Meulien, who is the Executive Director of the IMI. So Pierre, same exercise. Please introduce yourself. But also, I'd like to ask you in doing so to tell us how the IMI will be continued in future and continued in view to strengthen brain innovation specifically. Pierre, over to you.
Thank you very much, Frédéric, and thank you for inviting me to this very interesting panel. So my name is Pierre Meulien. I'm the Executive Director of IMI, the Innovative Medicines Initiative. As you all know, this is quite a significant public-private partnership representing a long-term commitment from both the European Commission on the public side and the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and their associations on the private side. And we've been going for about 12 years. I think we've just allocated almost all of our budgets, over 5 billion over that period. This has been over 2 framework programs, and the brain has been a very significant part of all of that. Why? Because the brain falls into one of the categories of things that we do. I always say that IMI is not for everyone and not for everything, but for certain things, really public-private partnerships and creating these large consortia are the only way to make some significant progress in these challenging areas. And the brain is obviously one of these because of the scientific complexities that have already been described by other panel members, and also the failure rate of new drug development. And as you know, in Alzheimer's, this has been a huge problem, and pharma companies have spent many billions of euro failing. And it's at this time where we need to regroup, we need to think of different ways of working. These companies are now coming together on the IMI platform, bringing their own expertise collectively together with academics, with clinicians. And our funding model allows us to open that up to include regulators, as Florence has already talked about. Most important, patient groups. We can fund these people. So we can fund the regulators, we can fund the patient groups, we can fund SMEs, we can fund health technology assessors, and so on and so forth. So we have a large program already in the legacy of IMI, which is around not only Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, but also very importantly, autism, Parkinson's disease, pain. And the other thing, and this is getting to your other question, Frédéric, in terms of the future, we've also been able to take advantage of what's happening in the field in terms of technology convergence. And as you know, the digital world is coming into the world of biology in a very significant manner. We have already invested a lot in bringing not only the pharmaceutical part of the industry, but very importantly, the medtech, the instrument makers, the imaging companies, the digital companies, the diagnostic companies, to really try and build significant partnerships in this new area. And we've already, and this is coming back to what Jean-Eric was saying at the beginning, so important for us to join up dots not only in Europe, but these are globally important diseases. We have a very large program in autism, which is a transatlantic alliance between those big players in the US who and Canada, who are like the Simon Foundation and Autism Speaks and others who are very interested in this area, and bringing their expertise into Europe and making a much more global effort. And this is true and will be true in Alzheimer's and so on and so forth. So for as Jean-Eric said, there's a proposal for a new version of IMI. It's probably not going to be called IMI because we'll be bringing in the health technology sector, whether that be medtech, diagnostics, imaging, instrument makers, digital, into this new partnership to really take advantage of what is already happening in this sphere. So lots going on. As I said, the brain will remain very much part of the strategy of a public-private partnership in health, as it lends itself because of the reasons I've spoken about. So back to you, Frédéric, and happy to continue our discussions.
Thank you very much, Pierre. And actually, it's very interesting to see that you're pushing innovation, I would say, an extra mile in innovating, in finding new ways of working. You mentioned joining the dots, bringing together different sectors. I'd like to come back to you with a question, because you organized the IMI Stakeholder Forum last year on brain research specifically. Was there any take-home message at the time that you would like to share with us today?
The only take-home message that I got from that stakeholder forum was I was just amazed at how rapidly the technology is being developed, the digital technology that can actually be brought into this field. And this is why the connecting part and the partnering and collaboration part is so important. I don't know if you remember, but we had this virtual reality person who was talking about using this technology for anesthetics, and it was just incredible. So we're only limited by our own limitations, I think, in terms of what can be done. But we need to upfront connect these people, because as Florence, I think, was saying, it's so important to do this at the beginning, because the regulatory frameworks are unclear of how this digital world will merge into the biology world. It's happening, and it will happen, and it will be of huge benefit to patients when it does happen. And we have already things ongoing in the IMI portfolio, like Radar CNS, which is a very digitally oriented platform for remote data capture and other things. And the acceleration is just amazing. And this is what I think of one of the values of Europe, is that we can play this collective game in a way that through the European culture I think can put a real leadership in Europe on this kind of thing. So we should make the most of it and build that value, but not create other silos, and really be as connected as we possibly can.
Thank you very much, Pierre. This is actually very clear and very, very encouraging. Florence, I would like to turn to you on this note. With the rapid development of technology and innovation, as Pierre just mentioned, we very often oppose innovation that is a fast-moving and fast-growing field with regulation, which is rather slow, lagging behind, and rigid. My question to you is whether you feel that the EMA is equipped in order to address this challenge.
Yeah, I think we are at a turning point. That's true what Pierre was saying. We see more and more of those applications. We see more and more developers coming with ideas, and someone said it's good to have ideas, but they need to be translated into something that is really meaningful for patients at the end of the day. So what we have seen is like really now it's a good time to not to be behind, to be proactive. So that's why we have a group working on that at the EMA, of course, and we have published this Q&A to help really to together, because it's very important to have interaction. And it's not only with the developers. These are problems that are not only scientific. This raises a lot of issues. It's not only scientific, not only regulatory. It's very much also ethical, legal, data protection. So it's really a field where we feel that there is a strong need to have a multidisciplinary approach. So this is what we try to encourage as well, to come to us. And also last year when we had this brainstorming discussion at ECNP, we had philosopher, we had patient representative, because patients have a lot to say about how much such digital tool will be able or not to improve their life, because it's not only about the technical aspect, it's also what it can bring to the patient, to the clinical value of such tools. So there is a lot of thinking behind that. And from the regulatory perspective, as I said, because we've seen quite a few already in CNS in particular, because that's a field where it can improve the subjectivity of the measures. We have published this article, and we felt that it was important for the field to know how to be able to guide their development. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, thank you, Florence. And actually, we'll share the article on the website of the Brain Innovation Days after this meeting. I think it's an enlightening piece that we should share with many. Florence, I'm sorry, I'll have to ask you a follow-up question, which may be a difficult one. Very often, we blame the EMA for using clinical scales that are no longer fit for purpose. Are the plans to revamp those part of the working group that you mentioned on restructuring and reworking the way you operate?
Well, the scales, it's an issue, of course. I mean, we can acknowledge that the scale we are using and are in psychiatry in particular, they are old scales. And now with new mechanism of action, for example, if we think of rapid reduction of symptoms, such we had esketamine approved recently, are the scales fitted to measure a rapid reduction of symptoms in depression? This is something that we want to take into consideration, and we have in fact a platform which is a different one than the one really for the digital in particular. It's what we call qualification advice, qualification opinion, and it's colleagues who are really helping to developers or you want to validate a scale in a certain condition. So they can come to us and we can discuss if the scale is fit for purpose, how they want to use it. So this is obviously something that we welcome, because we need new scales. If we want to foster innovation, we need as well to have the scales which go along with a new mechanism of action. Otherwise, we may not be able to show anything. So it's we encourage as well this through this qualification platform. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Florence. That's very informative. And actually, you can rely on EBC and all our member organizations to contribute to this work and help with expertise in accompanying this development if that is so wished. Karim, I'm now turning back to you with the last question. We heard Jean-Éric Paquet mentioning the Brain Health Partnership. Is there something you could tell us a little bit more about what this idea actually represents, where we are in the development of it, and what can we hope?
Thank you. Yes, Jean-Éric Paquet mentioned this brain health partnership. Basically, we started with the constatation that we were somehow favoring segmentation or fragmentation in the brain landscape at European level, because we've been launching consequently several initiatives. The first one on joint programming on neurodegenerative disease. We had Neuron on mental and neuroscience. IMI also was doing something in parallel. HBP was doing something in parallel. The traumatic brain injury is doing something in parallel. The Global Alliance for Chronic Disease is doing something in parallel. So we started thinking that okay, we need to bring all this initiative a little bit together and really try to have at least some common goals so that everybody could point a little bit on the same direction. And to do that, we have asked, we have put a call for tenders, for proposals, and well, the European Brain Council won this call, so they are now running this let's say study, which has two big aims. It has several, but the two main aims for us is to develop a shared agenda for brain research, shared by all these partners that I'm mentioning, but also by the member state. That's an important one. And the second part is also the international aspect. We have seen in the last 10 years many large initiatives on brain research everywhere in the world. They are like 10, 11 or everywhere. And how, again, we can work with all those big partnerships, initiatives. So in a nutshell, that's about the process. Where we are now is we are, since it will come after 25, so we have a bit of time, but we want to make it right. We are starting with the member state to see a little bit where they want to go, the ambition that they want to have, and the earlier signs that we had from the member states was that they wanted to be extremely ambitious on this brain health research. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karim. And actually, I realized that time is running actually very fast. So thank you all for your contribution. I'd like to conclude with giving you the floor each for 30 seconds with final words. So starting with you, Pierre.
Thanks, Frédéric. Well, I'd just like to bounce off a few things that Karim was talking about, because I think the joining up of the dots, I think, is really the key thing. And I think we'll be looking to the Commission to help us do that. And you, Karim, you know, you can count on us to be part of that thinking, because I think that has huge value. And I think the European Brain Council can actually act as a convener for a lot of these things. So I'm hoping that we can be relying on you, Frédéric, to help in that. But that inherent de-siloing, defragmentation, I think, of what's going on would be a huge benefit to the community, patients, and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of value, inherent value, that is a bit trapped in there, in the different silos, including my own silo of IMI. And it's the last thing that I want to create, a silo within IMI. It needs to be much more connected with what's going on. So that's my 10 cents worth.
Thank you very much, Pierre. And actually, it's worth more than 10 cents, and you can count TBC in for that. Florence, now on to you.
Yes, thank you very much. No, I can just echo what has been said by Pierre. I mean, it's very important, I think, to get together and to really try to have more dialogue. And it's the field is moving, but to help it moving really more effectively, because at the moment maybe it's a bit too much all over the place. It's true, it's important to have dialogue and maybe more coordination between all of the stakeholders, and yeah, that's what I can say. But from EMA side, I think this is also to encourage really developers and people who have ideas, whether it's a new drug, a new scale, to come and discuss early with us, and we will try to arrange also interaction with other stakeholders, so we can have really this brainstorming discussion and try to accelerate, you know, the development as much as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Florence. And actually, we are due to get back to you now that you are settled in Amsterdam. I think we have one or two proposals on the table with you and colleagues, so you can be sure we will be back in touch. Karim, on to you.
Yes, thank you. And things. Since the meeting is about innovation, what I would like to say is that it's true that in research in general, Europe is the top class place to do research, but we don't translate that into the innovation. So we will very welcome your initiative on the Brain Innovation Days. And that's where I think the Commission is moving a bit more than before with the EIC. And we just trying to catch up a little bit the innovation gap that we have with other large regions in the world. And we're doing that, of course, with the EIC, but not only. It's a bit of innovation in all policies. And I think that with this approach, we will fill the gap and we will be better placed in the future on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karim. And I would like to thank all our panelists for their contribution. And actually, as we need to move on, I would like also to make a commitment to continuing this discussion online. As it was said earlier, we are now creating this platform for interactions and for discussions. So we will certainly post your questions and ask panelists to come back to it, as well as to share additional data, articles, or pieces that we will receive. So I'm now handing back to Jess for the next segment of the meeting, leading us to the future.
Thank you very much, Fred. Well, I'm back to the future. So for this segment, there are a few speakers that are going to intervene. So stay comfortable, make sure your coffee's refilled or your hot water is still hot or hotter than before. I'm going to introduce a first speaker, Professor Luca Pani, who works at the University of Miami and Modena. He's not with us, unfortunately, because he's in America and due to the global pandemic, he couldn't come to Brussels. Hold on tight, his intervention is fascinating, and then we'll have another speaker after. Enjoy.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here to start and kick off the digital Brain Innovation Days. Thank you to the European Brain Council, to the BeLean net. My name is Luca Pani. I'm professor of pharmacology and clinical pharmacology, University of Modena, and professor of clinical psychiatry, University of Miami. I'm also the vice president for regulatory strategy and market access innovation at Verasai, and in this role, I will show you some of the things we have done in exactly the topic we will be discussing today, therapies for the digital brain. In the past, and this justifies my disclosure, I was the head of the Italian Medicine Agency and a member of the European Medicine Agency, some of its committees. And so everything I say here is purely personal and does not imply on being endorsed or discussed by any of these agencies. So let me jump immediately into the digital therapeutics, what they are and what are they, basically what are they needed for. They are evidence-based therapeutic intervention, not dissimilar to what you might think for a small molecule, a monoclonal antibody, or CAR-T, or a small interference RNA. There are pieces of incredibly sophisticated software that can be used in concert or apart independently for the medication, and they have the exact same role that any drug might have. In other terms, they are used either to treat, to manage, or to prevent a medical disorder. They are not the regular app that you will find in your digital store. No, there are thousands, literally over 100,000 and counting, of these apps that in a way or another, especially when you come to prevent, they might be considered themselves a digital therapeutics. Well, they are not. Two things are very important in this case. The fact that they have to be validated by a regulatory body, And the other thing that is at variance with all the others therapeutics that we use is the fact that we usually imply a very active role by the patient in this case. So the software is the mechanism of action, or as they say in this field, is the mode of action. And in particular, this that I'm showing and the one that I will show, of course, are related to the CNS and to the brain, are indeed a reflection of the ability to interface the software with the human behavior and get something that is measurable, and measurable in a sense that will make a difference with respect to standard of care. The first software as a medical device, this is what they are technically called, that was approved is right here, is the one that I just show you by Peer Therapeutics. The name of this software, of this medicine, digital medicine, is Reset. And this is the pathway that led to the FDA to have granted a marketing authorization for substance abuse disorder. What was interesting when this came up, at least that struck me as a regulator back then, was the fact that the clinical trial demonstrated a significantly increased adherence to abstinence. So it was like a cognitive behavioral program that will increase your adhesion, your compliance to the abstinence in a remarkable way. So the P was very significant. In patients that were had a substance abuse disorder with alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, or the other stimulant, but, and this I think was very important also for the decision by the FDA, this same clinical trial did not demonstrate the effectiveness of the same app, of the same device, in patients that instead were reporting opioids as a substance abuse. That is very interesting if you think about it, because it means there was specific in terms of the ability of this particular, then an evolution of this app will also go into Reset, called Reset O, Reset Opioids, will go further into this. But this was very interesting because it showed a specificity of the effect. You don't want an app, in other terms, or a digital therapeutic that will work for any type of brain disorder regardless. It has to have the specificity that in the pharmacology, in the neurocircuits, and in all the literature, 50 years or more, that we have built in the evidence. This is an important piece. So there is the other one, the Reset O. In the Reset O, the interesting part was that again, it did not show. This was a combination between the medical device software as a therapy and buprenorphine to allow the management of an opioid abuse disorder. And the data showed that what the Reset O, what the app did digitally, was again increase the retention of in the treatment program. It did not change the amount of patients that would be in abstinence. It would decrease. So that was done by buprenorphine, you might say. The biological part in terms of the drug was done by buprenorphine. But the app added instead the digital component to it, increasing the retention to the program. Another example that I want to show you is the Achille Stars ADHD clinical trial, which Verasai participated before I joined. And what this is basically, people at Achille will not held me accountable for this, what I'm about to say, but it's a game. It basically is a game. It's a game, and it's a game that engages these kids into a profuse response that then will decrease in all the scales that you could use You see them here. All the scales that you could use for the clinical trial, an experimentation clinical trial for a regular drug development, methylphenidate, amphetamines, anything that be used for this particular indication, it would show a clinical efficacy by having these kids playing this game. So these are just two or three examples to show you that the digital therapeutics, the therapies for the digital brain, are already among us, and they've been approved and they've been reimbursed. So it's not something that this is not the disruptive part. The disruptive part will be how to develop more and more to this, and what are the regulatory implications. Now, in Europe, and this is there are differences between the two markets and the two rules. I'm not sure if you are somebody that is interested in developing digital therapies for the brain, if you should aim as to one market only the US market, only the European market, only the Asian market, the Japanese, or so on. I think these are indeed very global type of drug application or devices application, and so they need a sort of regulatory consensus, and this is why I will spend the next few minutes in discussing this. In Europe, there are no currently guidelines to advise on the trial design, and it's true that the new European regulation for medical devices includes the in vitro diagnostics and the devices, but not yet software. So at this moment, the preferred regulatory pathway remains the qualification process, and this has similarities and similitudes with the US market. So what do you need to do? How do you need to generate the evidence? Let's say if you decide to use, to develop, use, or do research in one of these apps. First of all, you have to verify that you are really measuring what you are saying you're measuring. And your engineering, your accuracy, your precision, in this case, is up to the point which you would do with the quality for any drug-related development. Then you need to run a very deep analytical validation. So you need to show the app is user-friendly, it's easy to use, it's easy to uptake, that you have a standard for these studies that shows that they can be run easily. What is going to be? Is the app running into a particular new device that you design yourself? It can be a wristband, it can be an ankle band, it can be anything, a sensor, or even a wearable T-shirt that has sensor there. Or you are bringing your own device and I'm uploading the app in your device. Another thing that is very important in the analytical validation is that regulators will ask you to not to reinvent the wheel. Well, in general, regulator will ask you not to reinvent the wheel anyway. So please be linked to the way the concepts of this particular development in that particular therapeutic area have been developed. The existing concept, or if you want to measure a new concept, provide all the rationale and all the analytical validation. Finally, you have to run a clinical validation. You have to run a clinical validation, you have to run observational studies, and then do prospective validation long-term in order to show that in the population of interest, with the endpoints that you are using, comparing to the standard of care, your app, your software as a medical device will make a significant clinical benefit. At the end, we need to have something that changes clinically the outcome of the disorder you want to treat or prevent or manage. Remember these three things. The differences between the US and Europe are, I would say, with some pain in my heart, the differences are quite high. The EU is, if I may say, is a little lagging behind on the clinical technologies. EMA is developing a framework, but EMA does not have the normative, the legislative power to measure, to evaluate the device, but only the clinical measure. And this is a recent paper that just came out from some of the European and FDA regulators about this particular perspective. There are also similarities. Not everything is bad. There are also similarities. Some of the similarities are basically listed here. Both the US and Europe have a letter of intent. Both have the qualification plan or the full qualification program. And what is this? Once you're qualified, basically, your measure, your app, your device is qualified and is fully qualified and has shown the things that I was referring to in the previous slide, then you can use this de facto into a clinical trial. And by using this into a clinical trial, you could provide a full research and development plan using that in particular. Let me finish, and I had like 15 minutes. Let me finish in the last few minutes what are the perspective and where the world is going. In the US, the FDA opened literally last month the Digital Health Center of Excellence. And this, as you can see, will, don't mind what is written here about the objective, I mean, they're important, no disrespect, but this is not what I would like to draw your attention on. These are the type of domain that will represent the future and the perspective of, and they will be really disruptive in the digital development of any of these measures and devices for the brain. Pattern recognition, automation, of course, the neural networks, the huge use of machine learning and problem solving, and all of this and the data mining will now be possible thanks to the computing power that we are developing around the world. What is Europe doing? Well, Europe per se, in its totality, is not doing very much, but the German BfArM and the German government went very fast and in a very fast track indeed, and very ahead with this digital health application. And you can see here there is a very clear, if you Google, the fast track process for digital health application in Germany, you will find a 130 pages detailed document in English as well as in German that will show you what is the complete process for getting a digital application in Europe. So for the time being, I hope this will change soon, but for the time being, Germany is the most advanced country in Europe that has something you could use as a fast track for developing a digital health. Would this represent something that we would see in the future, and in particular in the brain? I would certainly say so, because of all the digital devices that you might develop. If you think about it, you can do this for heartbeat or weight or any other thing that you might think on movement and so on. All of them, at the end of the day, represent the phenotypic presentation of what the brain does. In other terms, it will show the behavioral changes that occur in disease or in health, and will allow really to change, to switch to a paradigm that we are way to see, which is going to be completely promising for the very next future, particularly in the brain health and disease. And I thank you very much, and I'm very grateful again to have had this opportunity to share some of this idea with you all. Thank you.
Well, I think we can all say a big thank you to Luca for this very interesting intervention. Clearly, digital solutions are complementary on how to manage brain diseases, so very important to keep in the back of our mind. Like I said, we're bringing stakeholders together. We've heard from the European Commission, and now let's hear from the European Parliament and how they see the future of brain innovation. I'd like to introduce our final speaker for this event, Maria de Garcia Carvalho. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. In first place, thank you very much for the invitation to address this very interesting conference. I would like to start with the points of the importance of science and the research and innovation in general, and in particular for the area of brain, and the challenge that we have in front of us in these areas, both in general in science and innovation and for the brain research and innovation. And the last point, the role that what we are doing in the European Parliament to address these issues and to help in these areas. It's nowadays quite obvious, but we should keep repeating that science, research and innovation are crucial for the well-being, for the economy, and also for the well-being of our society. We knew this before, but now with the recent pandemic crisis, it's obvious for all the citizens that the answer to the present crisis will come from science in terms of new therapies, in terms of more efficient and rapid tests, in terms of vaccines. So it is very important that policymakers take research and innovation very high in their agenda. Research and innovation in general, but in particular on the health sector and in the area of brain. And why in the area of brain? For two, in my opinion, two main reasons. It's still a lot that we don't know about the brain, how the brain functions, and all the data from Eurostat, from a lot of reports tell us that at least 1/3 of the Europeans suffer or have suffered in their life in brain related diseases or disturbances. So it's something that affects most of our families, most of the people in the world, and especially in Europe. So against this background, we need to continue to put a lot of emphasis on research and innovation and on the brain research. And it's a fact that the European Commission has in the past, now for some years, financed several projects and large projects in the area of brain, and we should continue to do so. But investments alone are not the only solution. We need to cooperate. We need coordination. We need to have large networks cooperating with each other in different member states and also outside the EU, so that we can speed up our results. So when we work together, we find the results faster and in a more efficient way. So we need more coordination in research, and overall we need more data and more coordination on data. Something that we are lagging behind in Europe is in the way we store and we have access to data in general, but in special for health data, and something that policymakers have to address very seriously and very urgently. So what are we doing in the European Parliament in all this? We are leading, is the institution, the European institution that are leading a fight with the Council in order to increase the budget for the next Horizon Europe, the research and innovation program for the next 7 years. The proposal that we have from the European Council is very disappointing. For the first time in the history of the research and innovation framework programs, is the first time that we don't have an increase on the budget of a framework program since its beginning. And we have much more objectives, much more tasks for the next research and innovation framework program, from the Green Deal to the industrial strategy to the hydrogen strategy. The only concrete budget that is allocated, that is visible and allocated to these areas is the budget that is in the Horizon Europe. And all the challenge that we have and that the society expects the scientists to give answers in the area of health. This is financed through the Horizon Europe, as it is now financed through Horizon 2020. So it was Horizon 2020 that financed a lot of research in the COVID-19 area. We are expecting Horizon Europe to continue to finance the brain research and innovation, the global health partnership, the innovative medicines initiative that is also a public-private partnership. So a lot of demanding on the next framework program, and not the corresponding ambition in the budget that is proposed by the Council. So all the European Parliament is very united in this cause and these negotiations, and we hope that the final negotiations we have a solution, a value for the budget that is better than the one that was proposed initially by the Council. But more than budget, as I said, we are pushing for a more coordination in research in all areas, but especially in the health area. I have been always pushing for a coordination of the research in the health area. And when I was rapporteur of Horizon 2020, I even proposed a European Health Research Council. That at the time we didn't manage, I think that was an interruption, but we didn't manage to convince at the time the Council and the Commission, but we at the time created the Scientific Panel for Health in order to help to coordinate the research and to think about the future and to coordinate the research between the European level and the member states level. Now we are very happy that all the claims that we have been doing, so I did that in Horizon 2020, was a proposal, a concrete proposal in my report, But now in this term, I have been writing to the President of the Commission in the beginning of this legislature. I have putting questions to the Commission, writing to the President of the Commission. I recently, some months ago, I wrote together with my colleague that at the time was President of the INCO committee, Petre de Sutter, that is now Vice Prime Minister in Belgium. We wrote exactly asking the Commission to create an agency to coordinate the research in the area of health and biomedical research. And we were very pleased when we heard President van der Leyen announce in the last State of the Union that a new agency on biomedical research will be created. It's a fantastic opportunity that we have for more health research and for more coordination between the EU and the member states, and also to consider all the pipeline from the fundamental research to healthcare. That is something that we still lag behind in all this connection between the more fundamental research and the more applied and the clinical part of health. So we have done a very important role pushing and supporting the Commission for this initiative of the new agency on biomedical research. We have pushed for the budget, and in the end, we have pressed also the Commission not to be afraid and to put forward a proposal to have more competence on health. We think that Europe needs more competence on health. Myself, personally, I always have thought so, but many colleagues after the COVID are also convinced that this is the case, and we are also very positive when the President of the Commission has present the idea of a health union and a new program, EU for Health. That is very important advancements. The Parliament will support these advancements, and we hope that very soon we will have more competence on health, not only on health research, because things are related. Health research is very interlinked with all the clinical practice. And we want to have better and more budget for health research and for health in general. We need to have more cooperation in health, in clinical, in all phases of the health sector, and more cooperation in the exchange of data. So you can count on the Parliament to support and to support the Commission and to negotiate with the Council for a more coordination, a more important role of health and health research at European level, and in particular, the brain research and innovation. So I wish you all the luck in your work, and you can count on me and on my colleagues in the Parliament to support your work. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Maria, for this very important intervention. The two key takeaways from your intervention were there needs to be an increase in budget and there needs to be coordination, especially when it comes to access to data. So this allows us to come to the end of our first event in this journey together. And so on this note, I really do want to remind you that the discussion is taking place online, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Don't forget to use the official hashtag. And as we started, I'd like to end. I'd like for Guillaume and Fred to come here and give some closing remarks and to maybe conclude what's just happened today and bring us to the future and what's happening in 2021. Fred and Guillaume, please come to the floor.
So here we are for the start of this journey, Guillaume. Today was the first event of a series leading towards hopefully next year in October. So I'd like to invite everybody to pencil your diary. We are planning a physical meeting, hopefully in Brussels, on the 12th and 13th of October 2021. So it will be the opportunity for the 12 months leading us towards this event to unleash the potential of the community, but also to uncover different perspectives around brain innovation, such as brain in the machine, creative interventions, personalized brain care, neuroethical issues, and hopefully many more.
So next event will be more dedicated to startup and funding. So we will organize a pitch competition where entrepreneurs and students will have the opportunity to present their idea or their product or their project in front of professional investors and incubators. So don't forget to apply and let's look at the video we have done to promote that.
Thank you, Fred and Guillaume, for these closing remarks. I hope you've all taken note. It's November the 30th to put in your application, so don't forget and make sure you start filling in your application now, because time goes very quickly. So on this note, I'd like to say a little goodbye to you all. It was a pleasure to moderate this event. I would like to remind you that on Slido, we do have a survey for you to fill in, because we'd love to have your feedback to understand what you enjoyed about this virtual event, what would you like to see more, and as much information we can get from you, we will improve in this journey with you. And on that note, I'd also like to thank our sponsors, the Chen Institute and Novartis, and we're going to close on a video from the Chen Institute. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.